I've recorded this video twice before, and it's been a day or two now since I watched the episodes, and I'm really hitting a wall with this because I don't want to just do what everyone's expecting me to. I don't want to just go, haha, they skipped the card fights. By the way, we're talking about episode 9 to 13 of CardFight Vanguard V-Series, Dimensions, more specifically the entire Koshien Tournament. The entire tournament is 5 episodes. You can tell I've recorded 2 40-minute videos already because I'm kind of just, yeah. The problem is that they skip the card fights. You don't need me to tell you that they skip the card fights. You know they skip the card fights. You know the actually good ideas get squandered and wasted. You know that Tetsu versus Ibuki card fight should have been shown. You know that the early rounds of Aichi versus the lesser known teams should have been shown. You know that the Korin's outburst, the thing the entire arc has been building towards so far, comes out of nowhere and they don't capitalize upon it. You know that the Kai versus Aichi card fight is one of the only actually good card fights that they show a decent amount of, despite the fact that they draw far too many heal and critical triggers in a row. You know all of this. Everyone, well, I say everyone, quite a few people, an abnormal amount of people were like, hey, the cynical side of you is going to love this tournament arc. You're going to shun it so bad. And I feel like those people were expecting me to just, make a really long, drawn-out video of me going, haha, they skipped card fights. But you know what? From this point on, I'm challenging myself. I'm challenging myself to talk about this tournament and why it doesn't work without mentioning the skipped card fights, or at the very least without mentioning the skipped card fights unless I have actually something to add on to that. Instead, we're going to take a different angle here. We're going to do something interesting and different because this was obviously going to be one of the more anticipated of my review videos because, again, I've read my own comment section. People were kind of anticipating this. And instead of just giving the same old criticisms that you expect me to give, I'm going to take a different angle here and I'm going to be constructive. I'm going to mention the missed opportunities and how they could have been fixed. So yes, it goes without saying, the first one is this tournament shouldn't have been 5 episodes long. We should have just taken out or moved forward the Shin Nita arc so that we could give this tournament at least 12 episodes, but preferably 25. That part's obvious. We should have shown Aichi's team in the first few rounds. The first few rounds shouldn't have just immediately been skipped off screen in favor of cutting directly to the semifinals. That part's pretty obvious too. But to be constructive here, how would they have done something interesting with these first few rounds? Because I'd imagine they'd be like, well, we trimmed the fat. We're getting rid of the filler. And something that really does annoy me is this anime's allergy to filler, especially considering that it's so focused on characters. The real problem here, yes, the artificial, obvious problem here is they skip card fight, but there's actually a bigger problem here that I don't know if anyone's speaking out about or has even actually noticed. And that's that this is trying to be a character-focused story arc where the characters drive the plot and not the other way around, but they're not actually doing anything with the characters other than comedy scenes. That's what it is. This anime feels the need to have every single episode or every single scene, it has to either introduce a new card, further the plot in some way, or have a comedy character moment that we can disguise as development. And that's the real problem here. It's the lack of genuine moments. So that's kind of the point I'm getting to here. So let's see if I can actually explain it without wasting 40 minutes of your time. So for example, what could we do with this first round that they seemingly skipped out of nowhere for no reason other than them not having enough time, but this anime is already 60 episodes long and it's going to keep going at least until 2020, so we do have time. At least it might get renewed for another year after that. So what could we do with this first round if we did bring it back? Here's an idea. What if Aichi forced the student council to pass the first round for them? Hear me out here. So basically my idea is, well, one of the problems with this arc is that it blunders payoffs. The past few episodes have been brilliant at having setup, but then this tournament fails to pay it off. That's what makes it so especially frustrating. Having a bad episode is one thing, but having a bad episode that refuses to pay off something that's been set up is even worse. What did we have set up for 4 full episodes? The fact that the student council are joining the CardFight Club. So have the first round be Aichi forcing them to take part. Now, why would Aichi do this? Because he doesn't want to feel like he's the only one carrying the team. Aichi's fairly carefree. He's fairly naive. And so he doesn't necessarily care about winning the tournament. In fact, us as an audience don't particularly care who wins the tournament either, because there's nothing on the line. The thing we're leading up to is Korin's outburst, not someone winning the tournament after all. And the audience knows this, because we've been hit over the head constantly by characters going, "My memory weird," which, yeah. And so to actually drive up some tension, to pay off some setup, and to, bring back characters in meaningful ways, Aichi will recount the time that he got into CardFight Vanguard because he was forced to card fight over Blaster Blade, and the rush of him winning against all odds and being given that chance to win against all odds by Kai. And since that was what got him into the card game in the first place, he's giving the student council that chance. They can't just join the CardFight Club and not actually play the game in a tournament. And so whilst Aichi and the others will be playing in the later rounds, Aichi's making the student council and Eru win the first couple rounds. That's where things get interesting. It's basically, you know how Rock Lee, the best Naruto character, constantly has those weights on his legs? That'll be the moment where Aichi puts his weights on. And that's sending out the student council. And what can this do for the anime? This can do a lot. This can do a lot for meaningful character moments, not just dumb comedy stuff where Naoki shouts out a thing that sounds silly and it'll cut to Aichi just smiling like, "Ha, he's weird," which is basically what every comedy scene in this tournament arc was, by the way. Instead, we have meaningful moments like Naoki getting really pissed off that he could be eliminated from his very first tournament because of something that Aichi did, which, by the way, this is foreshadowing for something. Remember this part. Remember the part where Naoki gets pissed off because he gets eliminated from the tournament. This part's really, really important. Bear with me here. The student council don't feel too great because there's been a lot of pressure put on them, but they also want to prove themselves to Aichi. They want to prove themselves to the world, and hell, they end up winning because of course they do. And this gives us an interesting dynamic within the group, because all the members of the group can have different reactions to this change, and it can also be good development for Aichi, who's starting to come out of his shell and starting to become a leader of the team and starting to speak out and make decisions. We don't lose anything by letting the entirety of the team pull their own weight. Another thing that we do, well, I don't really want to even go into the Tetsu versus Ibuki card fight because it's set up so perfectly that the only thing I would change with that is I would just show the card fight. Tetsu is a character who got deleted. He's recently been figuring out how to get undeleted. He was deleted by Ibuki. He's been moping around quite a bit. Ibuki hates the fact that he's deleted people. He's trying to change. He's changed his deck to Neon Messiah. He wants to prove he's a decent human being. The two of them start card fighting. The real anime cuts away from this. What they should do is just show the card fight. The rest kind of writes itself. Because that is interesting stuff that they end up squandering, but just don't squander it, idiot. Again, this means that we would already be at least two episodes deep into the tournament already, but I mean, yeah. So now what we're going to do is, well, we're going to keep showing card fights basically. And we're going to replace a lot of the comedic moments, a lot of the, we're going to take a random bath and so on and so forth, with, again, actual meaningful character interactions. Maybe we can have scenes, because the thing we're really building up here, the final round of the tournament, of course, is Naoki versus Ibuki. And so we want to build that up. We do have a scene in the anime proper where Naoki runs into Ibuki and is like, I hate that guy. But that's a bit on the nose. So instead, I'd like to have a scene where Naoki seems out of it. Maybe because they're staying in a hotel and Aichi and Naoki are staying in the same room, we have that classic scene of Naoki asking Aichi if he's awake, and Aichi's like, yeah, sure, what is it, dude? And Naoki acts uncharacteristically shy and is like, I'm really nervous, dude. I want to prove myself against Ibuki. I want to get my revenge on him for taking the piss out of you earlier. And Aichi's like, yeah, sure, I'll be cheering you on. Like, because she wouldn't be the kind of person to just put pressure on him or tell him that it's no big deal. And so he'd just be like, yeah, cool. So then we get more card fights. The Kai episode is actually the best episode of this tournament, I would say. So I'd keep that more or less the same, except, I'd show more of the card fights. Maybe have the characters pull a few less triggers so that we can extend the card fight a little more, give it a bit more breathing room. But other than that, most of the stuff that happens in the Kai episode is actually pretty good. Also, we'd be getting rid of the giant tournament stadium, and we'd be saying it in a somewhat dingy convention center, maybe even the convention center the Ultra Rare were in earlier. You remember the episode with Ibuki, Ultra Rare were in a convention center doing a fan signing with the Zerakiel cosplayer. Yeah, that convention center is fine. Have a small convention center, fill it with as many people as possible, because this is a more interesting looking environment to have the tournament in. It's smaller and dingier because, well, first of all, real life tournaments, card game tournaments are set in convention centers, and so it feels more realistic, it feels more grounded, it feels more down to earth, and so the stakes are personal now. Instead of having us cut to TVs of, like characters watching the card fight on TV, which is really stupid because, again, this is supposed to be down to earth and everything. Like, we already had the Deleters arc. We already had the arc that was like massively over the top with zombies and stuff. This can be smaller. Have it just be a group of friends entering a small tournament in a convention center. Have it be the kind of tournament where the only reason an audience give a shit is because Ultra Rare are there, Oh, I just want to see Ultra Rare again. The card fights are just extra. And so, yeah, we keep the Kai stuff more or less the same. Maybe we'd have to go, for the first couple rounds, you could use any member of your group, but from the semifinals onwards, you can only use a certain, already kind of signed up couple of members from the group so that we can still have that drama with Kai potentially not making it to the tournament on time. That stuff's fine. The rest of the finals, I don't know what I'd do with them because honestly, I don't find Ren's team all that interesting other than maybe Ibuki. So I'd certainly show their card fights. Maybe I'd mix things up a bit. Maybe what I'd do is I'd have Misaki go against Ren. Because the Misaki versus Asuka rivalry, I've never understood. They've never really had an interesting dynamic between each other. And I feel like the only reason they ever get paired up with each other is because they're both girls. And I think that's a bit silly. So I'm gonna have Misaki be the one go against Ren, and I'm gonna have the characters not necessarily know who's going against who as they sign the characters up, so it'll be somewhat randomized. So Misaki just finds out that she's going against Ren, and this immense amount of pressure is being put on her, and so now she has some time to shine. Misaki actually gets to do something in this tournament arc, because, name one thing that she actually does in the real version of the tournament. She beats Asuka off screen, and that's it. That's all she does. So this could be a cool matchup. So I'd show the entire 5v5 teams, and this is where things get interesting. This is the moment we've been building up to. So Naoki is going to be going against Ibuki. This is going to be the card fight that decides everything. Who gets to win the tournament? Maybe we can have maybe we can insert some backstory or something as to why it's important that they actually win the tournament. So maybe we can have the student council go, if we want the card fight club to keep going, we need to bring this tournament back so we can justify the price of travel and everything to the higher ups at the school. So if we don't win this tournament, then there's a very high chance that we might not be able to do stuff like this ever again because it's too expensive, which once again pays off the setup from earlier with, the student council saying that the card fight club was expensive. And then the Ibuki versus Naoki card fight is where things get interesting. So we still have the same setup, mainly of Naoki wanting to get revenge on Ibuki because Ibuki made fun of Aichi. That stuff's fine, actually. In fact, I really like that stuff, and I want to kind of delve into it a little bit. I think it's super interesting, and I don't think the anime itself goes into this enough, but I think it's super interesting that recently Ibuki's been trying to prove that he's a good person and feeling guilty about having a deleter deck. and feeling bad about all this terrible stuff he's done in the past. But then his main rival in this arc is someone who doesn't even give a shit about that stuff. Hell, he doesn't even remember that stuff. All he cares about is that Ibuki made fun of Aichi as a person. In fact, I would continue that on. I would maybe have a scene earlier on in the tournament where Ibuki makes fun of Aichi again. And you may be thinking, oh, but Ibuki's trying to prove he's a good person. Why would he do that to Aichi? Well, because he's human, and a character arc isn't as simple as that. Yes, he's getting better, but he's still not perfect. And so he just accidentally lets something slip and is like, and like, you know, maybe Naoki's like, oh, I'm looking forward to our team card fighting you in the tournament, in the finals. And Ibuki just, because he's used to it, lets something slip about, oh, I doubt someone like Aichi will make it to the finals. And Naoki's like, you better take that back. And that's kind of our setup for this final. Like, something like that. And we can maybe even have some scenes where Ibuki's just feeling bad about saying that, because he's like, I was supposed to change. I was supposed to be a better person. And I'm obviously not doing a good job of it. And having some layers of self-doubt, because that just makes his development all the better to watch, all the more satisfying, because it makes it feel more realistic. An arc is inherently more interesting when there are hurdles to overcome. So now, yes, we get to the card fight. We show the card fight just like they actually do. You know, this is one of the only card fights they show in full in the actual proper arc. It's later on in the card fight where things get interesting, because this is where Korin finally gets her memories back and has an outburst. Basically, in the anime proper, Naoki's playing badly, and something about this sparks Korin's memories once and for all, and she has this outburst where she grabs a microphone and is like, hey Naoki, you gotta play like this, you gotta do this, you gotta do that. Play like how I know you play it, Naoki. I know you really well. You can play better than this. Now, one thing you'll notice is up until this point, I haven't really mentioned Korin doing anything. I haven't really changed the arc so that Korin does more. And that's because I wanted to do less. Because this arc, once again, like the beginning few episodes of the Dimension arc in general, it really hits you over the head with the characters going, memories, 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 we recognize each other, memories. And I think this moment would work way better if it does come out of nowhere, because it comes out of nowhere for Korin. Maybe if you wanted to foreshadow it, instead of having characters talk about how they kind of recognize Korin and how our memories are weird, and the random moments where they just randomly run into her and she starts talking about the moon or whatever. Instead of this, maybe we could have a moment where, like, you know, they're walking down the hotel hallway and they're talking about strategy, and Aichi mentions something about the Gold Paladins. He's like, oh, they can do this and that, right? And then he turns back as if, you know, he's saying this to Korin, but she's not there. And then he just looks around and everyone's like, who are you talking to? And he's like, I must have had deja vu or something. I don't know. Sure, that's not like the best way of integrating it in the world, but it's much better than characters outright going, our memories are weird. Because as an audience, we know, we get it, we saw the previous arc. We don't care about the fact that their memories are changed. So if you're going to bring it up for a reason that really lets us dive into the characters. Again, meaningful character interactions. Not just, you know, characters having silly comedy scenes with each other that don't mean anything in the grand scheme of things. Like, for example, Eru talking in his sleep. It's supposed to be a joke, I guess, but it's not very funny. And instead, you know, we can have actual meaningful character interactions that actually set things up and just help us delve into these characters. And, you know, so they actually act like how real friends would in real life. You know, because we're supposed to be attached to these characters, and the whole Korin outburst moment, it's supposed to matter. And because of this, when Korin has the outburst, we get like flashbacks and stuff, right? So what we'll do is we'll get flashbacks instead of flashbacks to important plot moments, because this isn't a plot-driven arc, it's a character-driven arc, where all leading, you know, everything that we've been leading up to up until this point is Koji Ibuki's character arc and Korin's character arc. And so the plot doesn't really matter, right? So what we do instead is we have flashbacks to scenes we haven't seen before. Of course, if I could go back and rewrite the entirety of the reboot, I would just add these scenes in when they happen. But instead, we'll get small flashbacks to Korin being friends with the CardFight Club, because unfortunately we don't get many scenes of that. It's kind of difficult to believe the fact they're friends because, you know, they do join the club with each other. They have a couple of interactions here and there, and then Korin immediately becomes a psych-qualia zombie and then gets a memory deleted, and that happened ages ago too. And so, you know, when Korin has her actual outburst here, it kind of comes out of nowhere, but instead we're going to insert these small little flashback scenes of Korin venting, of Korin sitting down next to Aichi and just, because she's had a stressful day, just venting to him about like her troubles with Ultra Rare and how like difficult it is and how, you know, it's a fun job and everything, but working with your family and constantly being around them and never really being able to take any breaks and having to go to school on top of that and learning all these routines and constantly being surrounded by fans, and it just gets to her, and she just starts venting to him, and Aichi is a good listener, and so he just listens to that stuff and he tries to comfort her. And maybe another moment where the CardFight Club are gonna just hang out, like not even necessarily play the card game, just hang out after school. They're like, yeah, we're gonna do stuff after school, it'll be fun. And Korin's like, oh, I can't, I have to, you know, go and be with Ultra Rare because, you know, that's kind of my life now. But on a whim, she decides, you know what, no, I'm gonna skip that. I'm just gonna go with Aichi and the others and just have fun. And she does have fun. And, you know, later on in the day, when she comes back, Rek is like really pissed at her for skipping training, but Korin doesn't mind anyway because she had so much fun with her friends. Little moments, you know, and so we'll get little flashbacks to that kind of stuff. That'll be where we get the outburst. That'll be where Korin, you know, starts crying and everything like she does in the anime proper, except this time it'll have more emotional stakes. And another thing I'm going to change, and we'll see, you know, if they actually touch upon this in the anime proper in future episodes. Another thing we're going to change is we're going to make it so Aichi and the others never get their memories back, ever. The payoff to this arc will be that Korin gets her memories back, but Aichi and the others don't. Don't get me wrong, later on, Korin's going to tell them about all the stuff that she remembers, and Aichi, because he's naive and everything, he'll believe her and he'll trust her, but they won't fully get their memories back, ever, because this is an interesting dynamic. This lends depth and purpose to the memory erasing arc in the first place. Instead of just being a waste of time, oh, Korin remembers them, and now she doesn't remember them, and now they all remember each other again. And it's like, well, what's the point? We just ended up where we started off. And so now Korin just has to come to terms with the fact that she's going to just have to make new memories with them again. And I think that adds an interesting character dynamic. The fact that Korin knows who Aichi and everyone is, but they don't fully know her, but they trust her. So what's going to happen during this outburst is, because Korin is a member of staff who works for the tournament and is an idol and everything, and because she grabs this microphone and tells Naoki how to play the game and gives him advice for the card fight, this is going to get Aichi's team disqualified, because there's going to be a rule against that. Members of staff are not allowed to help contestants unless, you know, it is a referee mentioning that someone's broken the rules. But an idol member giving advice to a finalist during a card fight is absolutely against the rules, and they just have to disqualify the CardFight Club because they don't know if the CardFight Club told her to do that and they're on, like, you know, or anything. And this is the thing I mentioned earlier with Naoki, because Naoki is going to get disqualified because of Korin, and now this is going to really make things even more interesting. Side note, one thing I do super love, or the anime proper having Korin's outburst, is it's Naoki that causes it. Naoki is like one of the characters that Korin's interacted with the least out of the CardFight Club. See, it would have been predictable and cliched if it was Aichi that started the memory coming back, and that's kind of what I expected them to do. So the fact that it was Naoki is a fun little twist, and I like that. And so we're going to take that further, and well, now the episode ends with Aichi and the others being really confused. Everyone's confused that Korin knows who Aichi and the others even are, and everyone else is confused that, like, they've gotten disqualified, and they, like, hang their heads in shame and they leave the tournament. And then later on, Korin will sneak out from the rest of Ultra and stuff and meet up with Aichi and the others, maybe back at the school, maybe in the hotel, I don't know. And she'll just be like, hey, we should probably talk about all the stuff that happened. And this, again, sets up interesting character dynamics because now Naoki doesn't trust Korin. Now, Aichi may be naive enough to take her at her word, but Naoki's pissed that he's now been disqualified from the tournament because of something that Korin did. And so how is he to trust her? How is he supposed to know that she's telling the truth? Because, I mean, she's the one that just disqualified them. And this also is setting up the Ibuki card fight for later on, because now Ibuki's kind of annoyed too, because he got shafted. He could have beaten Naoki, and he didn't. And so now, whilst that card fight has been put off, that means it will come back at a later date, and, you know, we anticipate it. And we know that next time it won't be cut off. And so that just makes things interesting. And again, because Ibuki's arc is going to be a rocky one where he doesn't just go from being bad to good in a snap of a finger, this once again stirs up feelings in him. He kind of gets mad at himself for being impatient. Like, he wants to just fight against Naoki. And of course, they've been disqualified. And now they don't have that trophy to bring back home. And now they're going to have a very, very difficult time convincing the staff at the school to let the CardFight Club keep going in the first place. And so now we've got a really interesting jumping off point. Because, well, what's going to happen next? Anything could happen next. And that's exciting. You know, are we going to get that Naoki versus Ibuki rematch soon? Will Naoki eventually start trusting Korin again? What's Korin going to do? Are Ultra Rare going to get pissed off at Korin for having that outburst? So basically, I kind of wanted this video to be shorter, but whatever. I didn't want this episode review to just be me going, haha, they skipped card fights. I wanted to actually talk about some more interesting stuff than that. And sure, maybe some of the ideas and stuff I came up with here, maybe you deem them as too fanfiction-y, or maybe you like this approach. I don't know. Let me know. But I wanted to just find a more interesting way of structuring this episode review. And if you want to know what my actual thoughts on the episodes were, well, you can kind of just reverse engineer the stuff I just said. Oh, he said they should give the characters some meaningful interactions and depth. Okay, that means the actual episodes were very, very shallow. Because, well, yeah, they were. Oh, we should take some time and stretch this tournament out to around 25 episodes instead of just the 5 we got. Yeah, that means he thinks that the 5 we got weren't enough. Should we take the Shinita arc and just, you know, delay it until after we've done with this tournament? Yeah, probably. So yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this. I'm sure that with the next episode review, I'll go back to just, you know, making it like a normal episode review again. But I just wanted to do something interesting because like I said, I'd already recorded this video twice before, and both times it was a fairly standard, generic, just, this is an episode review where I keep complaining that they keep skipping card fights, and that's about it. Just 40 minutes of me saying that. God. Even I don't want to listen to myself saying that while editing the video. Imagine how much you would hate fucking listening to it as an actual finished video. So yeah, that's my thoughts. This ended up still being longer than I wanted it to be, but yeah. As for am I actually interested and looking forward to the next proper episode? Yeah, I am. The next episode is an exhibition match between Korin and Aichi, and I'm hoping they actually build towards something. They build upon Korin's outburst, because I think if Korin's outburst felt earned, then it could have genuinely been like a really like sad moment. It could have, you know, it could have been really emotional, but instead I just sat there not really caring because there was no nuance to it. There was no depth. The characters hadn't really got given very much to do. I mean, again, I posed this same question that I posed earlier. Name a single thing that Misaki actually did during this tournament. Hell, name a single thing Aichi did during this tournament that isn't just winning card fights. Because, yeah, that's all he kind of did. You know, they were just like, oh, we need to win this card fight. Go on then, Aichi. And he'd just go, yeah, sure, I'll win the card fight. And then Aichi will win the card fight. There's nothing there. We're missing the character dynamics. We need characters with personalities that bounce off of each other and go in interesting directions, because I totally am in favor of having character-focused arcs. You know, one where we don't really get that much story, but we get a lot of character interactions. instead. But unfortunately, again, the character interactions were mainly just jokes and nothing that interesting happening. And again, ironically, the most interesting character dynamics and interactions were the ones between Morikawa and Kai, which is weird. And of course, I imagine that's only really the case because Morikawa is already a comedic character anyway. And like I said, every scene has to exist for either plot reasons, introducing new cards reasons, or comedy reasons. And that just so happened that Morikawa is already a comedic character, so they can already do stuff with him while keeping it comedic. But the other characters, it just felt forced. But yeah, so that's my thoughts on the tournament. I'm sorry if I wasn't as shouty and loud and annoyed as you thought I was going to be, but hopefully I offered something a little more interesting than just that here. So yeah, that's the tournament and the real reason that the tournament kind of sucks. Yeah.